Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started here. First off, just if someone would through the chat, make sure that if you are having trouble hearing me or if I'm particularly soft, just note it in the chat and we'll do what we can to adjust the volumes. Having said that, could someone ping me and make sure that I can in fact be heard out there in attendee land? Someone just... Okay. So we got yeses all around. All looks good. Okay. A couple of housekeeping logistics. Welcome to creating plugin apps for ownCloud. On the phone with me I have Frank Karliczek, our CTO and co-founder of ownCloud Inc., and also leader of the ownCloud open source community, and of course my name, Matt Richards. I'm the VP of products. We have a couple of windows just for you to be aware of. If there's any problems with the connection to the communications, please use the chat window. We also have a Q&A window. So if you are interested in asking questions, we will catch them as we go, as you ask them. If for some reason those questions don't get answered before, we'll also leave time at the end for questions. And then anything that's not answered at that time, we'll reach out to you after and make sure we get addressed for you. Okay? And with that, let me just jump right into creating plugin apps for ownCloud. Just as a reminder of what we are, ownCloud fundamentally solves what we call the Dropbox problem. What happens? Well, you have two users in an enterprise on the left. They want to share a document, but it's too big for email or something like that. So they go ahead and they drop it into Dropbox or Google Drive or any number of other solutions. We're not picking on Dropbox here at all. But what happens is that file is now outside the enterprise, and while that particular issue of sharing that one file is now fixed, you now have a gap in your security policies, your governance policies. The files are stored on storage and servers that you don't own. And one of the biggest issues is user provisioning. If somebody leaves the company, they're still part of that shared folder. Those files remain shared with them. And in the end, what you lose is control over the sensitive documents. And what ownCloud does is fix that problem for you. And it does that by really moving that firewall from the left to the right. And we put the ownCloud server, that gray cloud in the middle there, behind the firewall. We have open APIs and architectures in there that helps you solve this Dropbox problem. Stop the leakage of sensitive data onto storage and infrastructure that's not owned by the enterprise and that's outside of control of the enterprise. Start to get a handle on user provisioning. If a user provisioned in the enterprise, provisioned once, that user could then use ownCloud. Deprovisioned, can't use ownCloud. Pretty straightforward. And you're also managing this, all your documents and your files to policies, to governance policies, to security policies, and doing your best to take care of your customers and their documentation and your sensitive files, all while providing that same Dropbox-like experience to enterprise employees. So what is ownCloud really? Well, for people who are concerned about sensitive data leakage via Dropbox, then we have a solution that is completely on-site, or we like to say wherever you choose. That could be in a private cloud, that could be on a physical server. It's up to you. It's your choice where you put it. Most often it's on-site, but it can be anywhere you choose. That solution is integrated in with IT infrastructure, LDAP, Active Directory. It might be integrated in with back-end storage that you have, an object store or something like this. It could integrate in with your back-end CIFS storage. It's entirely up to you. Again, that's about choice and integration with your infrastructure. And then last, extensibility through open APIs and plugin apps. And that's what we're here to talk about today, are those plugin apps. In the end, though, providing that same Dropbox-like consumer-grade file sync and share solution in this manner, on-site, integrated, and extensible. Because your enterprise users will certainly not want to give up that consumer-grade cloud experience by using something like ownCloud. Or excuse me, won't want to give up that consumer-grade Dropbox-like experience, but they will, but of course from an IT perspective, you need to provide the control that's needed to meet policies, guidelines, regulations, and that's what ownCloud can do for you. And so just a reminder, one last step, and then I'll hand it over to Frank. The components of an ownCloud proof of concept and the components of ownCloud in general, right? We have the ownCloud server, we have the brains, we have the iOS and Android apps that are available in the various app stores, and we have Windows, Mac, and Linux clients that can all be downloaded, running in the system tray, very similar to a Dropbox type client, syncing with the server. And today specifically, Frank's going to talk about creating a plugin app on the ownCloud server. So with that, and without further ado, Frank?
Yes, can you hear me?
Absolutely can.
Great. Okay. Yeah, welcome everyone again to this webinar today about ownCloud apps and what it is and how to create one. I want to stress a little bit that we don't have the time here to really do like a coding lesson development course. That's not possible here. But I want to give you a little bit of overview what ownCloud apps are, how they work, what you can do with them. Want to give you an understanding what you need to develop them. Want to give you a little bit a sneak peek into the API that you can use for your apps, and then also how to distribute them if you develop something that you want to share with the world. And at the end, of course, a few pointers where you can get more information, how really, I mean, what APIs you can use and so on, if you really start to code later. Okay, first, why write an ownCloud app at all? There are different reasons to do that. First, perhaps you want to integrate ownCloud with your existing system. So, for example, you have a special user management backend, or you have some kind of special storage backend, object store, an NFS server, something that's very specific to your architecture, or archiving app or backup app platform that you want to integrate with. So all kinds of different systems. This is, as Matt mentioned, one of the strong points of ownCloud, obviously, that you can do that. So if you choose to run your ownCloud on your infrastructure on-premise and integrate it with all your other systems, that's not really possible with something like Dropbox or Google Drive. So this is the first reason why you might consider to write an ownCloud app. The second one is you can also extend the existing ownCloud functionality. I mean, ownCloud provides all the basic functionality like syncing files, sharing files, versioning, encryption, and so on. But if you want to do something more, and this is not provided by ownCloud itself, because we can't and we don't want to implement every feature that's possible, but you can do it if it's important for you. So it's absolutely possible to extend ownCloud. And the next thing is you can also use ownCloud if you want to develop something completely new. If you want to develop a new web application or a new REST service for syncing or for exchanging data somewhere, so ownCloud is also a great platform for doing that. In fact, all the core functionality of ownCloud is also implemented with apps. So third-party apps or plugins, they're not like third-party extensions. They are really in the core of ownCloud. You can do everything with it, and that's also the reason why we call this apps, not only plugins. In our opinion, plugin sounds like something small that just extends existing functionality, but an apps, this means that you really can do everything here. That's very important. Okay, next slide. Okay, thanks. So what kind of apps are possible? I think I mentioned a few of them already. First, it's very popular that you can write a new user management backend. So out of the box, ownCloud supports a few important ones. We have our own internal user management, then we have LDAP, then we have Active Directory, and we have a few more. But there are a lot more specific, special user management backends out there, perhaps something that only exists in your organization. So it's very easy and very popular to write an app to connect that. The second point is you can provide a new storage backend. Out of the box, ownCloud provides access to your local files that are on the same machine or mounted somehow on the server. We can also talk to CIFS or NFS servers, to FTP servers, and all kinds of different backend storages. But if you want to extend it, if you have something that doesn't exist, then you can do this with an ownCloud app. Then, of course, extend the ownCloud core functionality. I have a few examples later. Perhaps you want to integrate it with your existing, you have a workflow application in your organization, or you want to have whatever special email notification if some event happens, and then you can do this also with an app. Then the fourth, of course, you can also write a full web application. We have examples for that. So ownCloud is a platform for rich HTML5 applications, and we provide all the backend functionalities that make this really, really easy. And the last point is the opposite of that. That could also be an application that doesn't have an interface at all, doesn't have a web interface at all. It just provides a REST interface or SOAP interface or some other kind of interface that you access from mobile applications or local applications or other servers and so on. So different kinds of apps are possible here. Next. Okay. Yeah, I have picked a few examples to show you a little bit more what the options are. All those examples, they are not in the ownCloud core. They're not developed by us. They are all third party. They're all developed by our great community. The first one is a news reader. So this is basically an RSS reader that's somehow very popular nowadays. We're just a few days away where Google announced to shut down the Google Reader. So a lot of people needed a replacement, and few community people said, okay, we want to use ownCloud as a basis for that, and they developed a really, really nice, great RSS reader. And there's a link to the app where you can see a few screenshots. You can download it. You can even look at the source code if you want to have some inspiration. It's a really, really nice application, a new nice ownCloud app. Like I said, it has a web interface, but it also has a REST interface. So there are already, I think, BlackBerry and Android applications out there that can sync with this application. So that's already like an ecosystem around this third-party app out there. Second example is Shorty. I think you all know these URL shortening services like Bitly and all these other shortening services. If you want to run your own shortening service because you don't trust the third-party service to track the clicks of the users, for example, there's a shortening app out there, also developed by a community member. You can just install it in ownCloud and you can run your own shortening service. And so as you can see, already those two examples, they really have nothing really to do with the main functionality of ownCloud, which is syncing and sharing of files. So those are all kinds of other functionalities, and they're all possible, even if it really doesn't have anything to do with files. The third one is an example for a user management backend. So this is a third-party application that implements a SAML backend. So this is also a very powerful authentication protocol, and someone implemented a plugin and app for that. And if you install that in your own cloud, then you can log in with SAML into your own cloud. So this is really, really nice. And if you want to write a custom user management backend, for example, this is a very nice blueprint. You can look at the code. It's all open source, of course. You can see what you have to do to implement something like that. And it's actually not a lot of code. It's very, very easy. Then the next one, mail attachment. This is also very, very cool. This is one of my favorite third-party apps. I found this a few days ago. someone wrote this. It works like that. You install it into your own cloud, and then new settings appear in your admin setting, and you type in your the address of your IMAP server and your login and password, and from then on, ownCloud fetches all the attachments from all the emails that you get and places them into your own cloud into a special folder. So this is very, very nice. So you can just imagine that you have your own cloud server, and it automatically fetches all your attachments, puts them into a folder. They are synced to your desktop with our ownCloud desktop syncing clients, and then you always have all your attachments in a special folder. You don't have to like save them from inside your email application, so it's automatically there. That's a very nice idea, I think. The next one is a virus scanner. Someone extended ownCloud with virus scanner functionality. So every time someone uploads a file, it automatically scans for viruses. And if a virus is found, you have different options. It could be deleted automatically or put in a special folder or send an email notification, hey, there's a file, please check this. So this is very nice. This is also using our hook system. So applications can hook into internal events of ownCloud and do then some things if specific events happen. In this case, if a new file is uploaded, this app is notified, gets a notification, scans the files, and say, okay, I do something special with it. So it's really easy to extend ownCloud here. The last one is also a very nice example. It's an OCR reader. This is character recognition, which means every time you upload a file into your ownCloud, this application automatically scans the pictures, the photos for text. And if it finds a text, it does it recognizes the text, and you have the text also in your own cloud in parallel to the picture. So this is very, very nice. Those are just a few examples. I mean, there are way more third-party apps out there, but I think it shows the possibilities that there are. This is one of the strong points of ownCloud. Okay. Yes. Okay. So what do I need to write one of those apps? Well, it depends. That's not a good answer, of course, but it's true. What you always need is you need a basic understanding of web technologies. I mean, ownCloud is using all the standard web technologies like HTTP and HTML for the front end, CSS for the styles, and we use REST and WebDAV for communication and so on. So it definitely helps if you understand how a web server works, what a database is, and so on. So this is definitely needed. So that's, I mean, without that, it's difficult. The second thing that you probably always need is PHP knowledge. The reason is that the ownCloud server is written in PHP, and we talk about server apps, or server extensions here. So this is not about extending our mobile clients or extending our desktop clients. They are developed or written with different languages, but the server is written in PHP, so you need some PHP knowledge. PHP is not a very difficult language, so if you have some experience with other languages, it's really easy to learn, I think. And as I said, we have a lot of examples, so that's totally possible, I think, if you already know how to develop. The next point, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I mean, this is needed if you want to, if your app wants to provide some kind of user interface, obviously. Some of the apps that I mentioned earlier, so the SAML plugin, for example, or even the virus scanner, the OCR reader, they don't really have rich interfaces. I mean, they do their stuff in the background. There's not a lot you can do, and just a little bit of configuration. It's very easy to do with ownCloud. So if you're not a CSS master, that's not a problem. Of course, if you want to provide build a rich HTML5 user interface like our RSS reader, this is really, really nice, very responsive, and using Ajax and drag and drop and so on. Of course, you have to understand how to do that so HTML, CSS, JavaScript in this case. Then SQL. So if your application wants to store data persistently, we have an SQL a database abstraction layer, so we support all kinds of different databases, SQLite, MySQL, Postgres, MS SQL, and Oracle at the moment. So if you want to store a lot of structured data, you have to understand how SQL works here. In the future, we will have better abstraction here, so you don't have to do a lot here. It's more is happening automatically, but at the moment you have to know SQL. This is not the case if you just want to store a few APIs for that. If you just want to store a few key value pairs, for example. So this can be done without a database. It's just handled by the ownCloud core. But for bigger structured data, like a proper database table is needed. The last thing is, of course, you have to understand, you have to learn how the ownCloud API works. The thing is that, as I said earlier, the ownCloud server contains out of the core, it's the ownCloud core, and then we have all kinds of apps around it. And a lot of the core functionalities that we have are also implemented as apps. And all these apps, they communicate with the ownCloud core via this special public API that we have. So you have to understand how to do that. It's actually not super difficult. I'll show you a little bit of example later. But there are a few important calls that you have to do to register your app and to add a navigation entry and to connect to hooks and so on. So a little bit of ownCloud API is needed here. Okay, yeah. So now it gets a little bit more technical as a warning. This is, as I said, I don't want to do a coding lesson here. This is not the right way to do that. But I want to show you a little bit of structure, in this case, the directory structure, but also a little bit of API later, so that you understand how it generally works. As I said, apps are the important like building blocks of ownCloud, and every app is basically first of all a directory. So every app is a directory in the apps folder. So if you look into your ownCloud installation, there's an apps folder, and in this apps folder you have subdirectories, and every subdirectory is an app. So this is the structure that we have here, and this is what I have here with app name on top. And in this app name folder, like whatever you call it, it's your decision, of course. We have this defined subfolder structure, and most of them are needed. Some of them are not technically not needed, but still strongly recommended to structure it like that. This is just best practice, and this also ensures that other developers understand what you're doing here. The first folder that you should have, if you have some kind of user interface, is an Ajax folder. In this folder, you store all the PHP controller files that are called if you do an Ajax request. So oftentimes, if you have an HTML5 user interface, and for example, someone clicks a button or drags a file somewhere or does something in the user interface, Ajax calls are fired, and these files in this subfolder are called. So PHP files that handle these requests are stored there. The next one, of course, I want to add that if you don't have a user interface, if you just, for example, do a storage backend or user management backend, you don't need this, obviously. I mean, if you have a user interface, you have something to configure. So, for example, our LDAP app that connects ownCloud to an LDAP server, there are a lot of configuration options, as you probably know. So you have a user interface, and you also have Ajax calls, but yeah, it depends. It's not always needed. The second thing is app info. This is probably the most important folder here. So this is a lot of files that you have to have, like meta files are stored in there. I don't want to go into the details here, but for example, there is an info.xml. That's an XML file where all kinds of metadata about your app is stored. So, for example, the name of it, the author, what does it do? Is it a file system extension or is it more front-end app and so on? You can also define dependencies there and minimal versions of the core that's needed to run it and so on. So all kinds of metadata. This is all details here. It's all in our developer documentation online. Perhaps I should mention here that everything that I say here is, of course, available in our development documentation. So if you go to ownCloud.org and there's a developer section, and then you have all the documentation here. Other files in this directory are a version file. So this is a file where you define the current version of your app. That's very important because if you can later ship a new version of your app, and all the users then get an update notification, and they can update the app to a new version. And during these updates, for example, you can automatically migrate database structures or do some other custom migration things depending on your app. So this is triggered by the version that's stored in the version file here. Another important file that has to be in there is app.php. So this is basically the file that's always executed if your app is enabled. And there you can do all kinds of general settings. For example, you can register a menu entry if you want to have this for your app, or you can connect some hooks. So if a file is uploaded, it's scanned for viruses, for example. You do this in this file because this file is always executed with every request in ownCloud. Of course, you shouldn't do like very complex operations in there because this would slow down ownCloud significantly. But that depends on your application design, of course. Another thing that you can put in this folder, but you don't have to, is a database .xml file. So you can, if you want to have custom database tables for your data, you can define your database structure in an XML file in this folder. So every time your app is enabled by a user, all these tables are automatically created, and this works with all the databases that we support. So it's go through our abstraction. Yeah, it's also important if you want to migrate it to a new version of your app, so the database structure is different, and so on. But there are great examples how to do that online. But that's not needed. I mean, if you don't need a database, you don't need a file. But yes, if yes, then that's the way to define it. Then the next three folders: CSS folder, the images folder, and a JavaScript folder. I mean, this obvious, I think, what you should store there. The CSS folder is for your styles, for your front end, for CSS, and images, of course, and JavaScript files. We have a templating engine in ownCloud, and we have calls. I think I have this on a later slide that they can easily use to load CSS files and JavaScript files, and also calculate the path to images and show them. So it's very easy to do, but you have to store them into the right place so that the ownCloud templating engine finds them. The next thing is the localization. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks. It's a localization folder. This is the thing ownCloud works is that in general all the user interface is developed in English. So all the text and all the text basically, they're all in English. But we also have a translation engine internally, so you can always provide additional languages, and those additional languages, they are stored in this folder. and ownCloud automatically shows that if the user switches the language. So ownCloud itself is available in a lot of language. I don't really know at the moment how many, but I think about 40. And they're all developed, all translated by the community. And all the different strings for the different languages, they are stored in this folder. Normally, as a developer, you don't have to care about it. Just write your application in English, and then if a friendly community guy shows up and says, "Hey, I want to translate this in whatever language," they are automatically put into this folder by our packaging scripts, and they just show up, and it automatically works. So that's very convenient. The next folder is the lib folder. So all the libraries that are part of the application, they should go there. I mean, all the heavy lifting, of course, if you have to develop a special class to handle SAML authentication or something, put this into files and put it into this folder. And then they're automatically found if you access them. We have an automatic library loader, so in the code you just have to call a specific class and it automatically finds it into the right folder and automatically includes it into the execution context. So it's very convenient, but you have to put it into the right folder. Last example is templates. Like I said, we have a templating engine. So put all your templates in this folder. Templates are basic HTML files, obviously, and you can, with PHP, place placeholders into it. For example, you can pass this through our templating engine. It's very lightweight. It's not very fancy. We don't have any XSLT transformation or something like that, like other frameworks. But the benefit is it's super fast. It's actually very easy to learn. Okay, so next one is, now it gets even more technical, as I said, but this is the last technical slide. I want to give you like a sneak preview into the ownCloud API. I mean, this is just, I picked a few examples of a few calls that are used a lot of times. There are way more, obviously, and I really can't discuss them here in detail, and I also don't discuss the parameters here. I just have the calls listed here. But the good thing is that we have a website called api.owncloud.org. This is an automatic generated API documentation. So this website scans the source code automatically all the time and generates a nice overview over the public API that you can use. So all this can be your reference if you want to know what is possible and what is not possible. Yeah, and then we have a list of API calls, just as I said, just examples. I mean, this is probably less than 10% of the stuff that's out there, but it's probably interesting for you to see what is possible. As you can see, they all start with OCP. OCP means ownCloud public, which means that those are all classes and modules that are public, so they're all accessible for third-party apps. There are other internal classes and functions and constants and so on. They're only called OC, and those are only internal ones and you can't use them. So only use the OCP ones that they are available for the applications, and they are also guaranteed to be stable between ownCloud versions. So if you write an app for ownCloud 5, for example, and when you release ownCloud 6, and you only use the OCP calls, then your application works automatically without any changes. So this is the stable public API. Okay, we have different modules here. As you see, it starts with OCP, then app. So app, we have grouped here a few calls that are interesting for app management, and we have configuration, database, utilities, users, so all kinds of different modules. The first call is called app navigation entry. So if your application wants to provide an entry into the site, in the site navigation, you have to call this API in your app PHP. So as I said, that's the file that's always loaded. And if you add this file into it, it's guaranteed that there's always a navigation entry for your app on the side panel. So this is obviously very important if you have a user interface, because otherwise people can't find your pages. The next thing is you can also set this navigation entry to active or to inactive. This is important, for example, if you have an app that provides different navigation entries and people want to switch between them, you of course have to control somehow which one is at the moment activated or not, because we have an activated and not activated state. The next two calls, register personal and register admin, they are very useful if your app wants to extend the configuration page with additional settings. So person is for the personal settings page of the user, and admin is for the admin page. If you know ownCloud, then you know that in the settings there's an admin entry that is like a general administration page, and every user, even if the user doesn't have admin rights, has at least a personal settings page. Okay, and with those two calls, you can register like a new section into this in this admin page. So if you for example, write an LDAP connector and you want to configure something, then LDAP is obviously something that the user does, not an admin does, not a person, not a user. So you should call this register admin call and add a new configuration section into the admin page to configure your LDAP server. Then the next two calls, get user value and set user value. There's a very easy way where apps can store some settings. But these are just a key value store. So if your app needs some kind of configuration, a few checkboxes, an input line, something, you don't have to write this all with SQL. You don't have to deal with databases here. There are two calls to set a value and to get a value. That's very easy. Next thing is prepare. So obviously our database abstraction is a little bit more complicated than just this one call, but this is just an example that we have this public API where you can prepare an SQL statement, then execute it, then fetch the results. So very easy, and like I said, independent from the database. That's really configured by the admin. The next call is here is logged in. With this call, you can check if currently a user is logged in or not. There are more calls. You can check what the groups are of a user, or if the current user is an admin or not. Because some applications want to provide different user interfaces, if your user is logged in or not. So for example, if your app, let's say you want to write an app to do an image gallery or something, and this image gallery should be accessible to the public, even for people without an account on your server. Then you can do that. But if you have some functionality that should only be visible for people from the same server, then you can, with this call, check if this is the case or not. The last two examples, like I said, is just always a very rough overview, but those are examples how you can load additional JavaScript files or CSS styles into your templates, into our templating engine. And this is also very convenient because it automatically finds the right files in the right folders, in the right app folder, and so on, because this is finding the right place where to load the JavaScript from could be sometimes a little bit tricky, because as you know, ownCloud runs on Mac, Windows, and Linux with different web servers, with different configurations and so on. But all this complexity is hidden to you That's all done internally. You only have to do add script and then give the name of the script, and then it finds the file and includes it. Okay. Next slide. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now you have developed your great app, and of course you can use it on your own, obviously. But perhaps you also want to share it with the world. You want to make this available for other users. And we have our App Store for that, called apps.ownCloud.com. App Store is probably the wrong word here because everything is for free, but we still call it App Store. So you can manually go to this URL and you can see all the apps that are developed by other people there. And you can register an account, can upload your app, and then we have a review process. That's very important because your app can be harmful for other users. So for example, you have the coding quality is not very good. It accidentally deletes data, or it implements a backdoor in ownCloud or something like that. And it's fine if you do this on your own server, of course. But if the ownCloud community out there is using your app and then is harmed by your app, then this is obviously not good. So because of that, your app is not automatically immediately online. First, we have to go through the review process. The review process looks like that we have a group of our core developers. They go through the apps and look at the code and see if everything is fine or not, and then they approve it, and then it shows up on the apps page for download. This is also very important because you can actually install these apps directly from ownCloud. So if you have an ownCloud server and you have this apps menu entry, and you can click on it, you see a huge list of apps. Some of them are already activated and installed. That's the core functionality. Then we have a few others that are shipped with ownCloud. They are in the same tar file, but they are not activated by default. So it's your decision as an admin. And at the bottom, we have even more apps. And those apps, they are fetched online from our App Store. So they're fetched online from apps.ownCloud.com, which means if you publish an app and the review process is successful, then all the ownCloud users in the world automatically see your app on their apps page. And there's an enable button, and enable is probably a little bit, it's probably not the right term, because what it actually does, it downloads it, it installs it, and then enables it. Which means with just a simple click, it's not only activated, it's also downloaded and installed from the App Store. And that's a very powerful system, of course. This is at the moment switched off for our ownCloud Enterprise Edition, because our enterprise users, they want to have stricter rules, what should be installed on the server and what not. So perhaps you want to make sure that only like certified and checked apps are running on your machine, and an admin could be with just a click put some third-party code onto your server, and that's not always wanted. Because of that, it's off by default. Of course, in the config file you can switch it on again if you want, but of course, we as ownCloud Inc. only support a certain set of apps, and we don't support any third-party apps at the moment, of course. So then this is, of course, obviously your own risk. Next thing I want to mention is update. It's also very nice. So if you release a new version of your app and you upload it to apps.ownCloud.com and you increase the version number, as I said earlier, it's automatically detected, and all the users of your app, they get a notification in their ownCloud that a new version of this app is available, and with one click they can download a new version and update it, and also the automatic database migration and all the update scripts are also triggered. So you can always ship new versions to your users. The last thing I want to mention is the license. So as you know, ownCloud is the community edition is available under the HGPL license. It's a free software license, and our enterprise version that's available from ownCloud Inc. is also available under HGPL, but we also do dual licensing, so it's also available under a non-free license if you choose so. That's of course the decision of the user. And this has some impact on the licenses of these apps too, because HGPL requires that you have to make all your changes or your code available to the users of your code. So if you, for example, if you're a provider, a service provider, and you provide ownCloud to your users, and you have, let's say, 1 million users, and they all use ownCloud, this means that you have to also open source the apps that you wrote for your business. So if you extended ownCloud with some special whatever functionality, and you make this functionality available for your 1 million customers, and you use the community version license under the HGPL, this means that your app also has to be released under the HGPL. And this is one of the restrictions that are not there anymore if you use the commercial enterprise version from ownCloud, because then you have also ownCloud available under a different license, so you don't have this restriction. This is one of the benefits for using the enterprise edition, but I think we discussed it at an earlier webinar. Okay, next slide. Okay, as I said, I don't want to do a complete course how to develop software here, but there are plenty of information available online. So we have, for example, this repository for apps on GitHub, github.com, ownCloud apps. And if you go there, you see a huge list of all kinds of apps developed by the community. You can look around, you can see how it works, you can use them, you can improve them, and you can also put your own app into this repository. So if you decide to develop your app in the public, you don't have to, but you can. Then you're more than welcome to contact us, and you get an account there and just put your app in there, and you get help from other people too. So it's very, very friendly and welcoming community. Then the next thing is we have a very nice template how to start, because as I said, we have a specific directory structure and a few special files that need to be there, and this is the right name in the right place. So we have this template that you can download and use, and I think it's very easy to understand. That's a very basic template. We even have a second template. We have an advanced app template. This is a little bit more sophisticated. This is using AngularJS, and it's using a model view controller framework. There's also possible to use this complex framework, and we recommend to do that if you plan to write a really, really complex web application. But for a start, the simple one is probably also good. Then we have the developer documentation. As I said earlier, you can just go to this URL, and you get an information how to develop apps, or the API documentation, some how-tos, and so on. Then we also have our IRC channel. So we have a channel, and there are always over at least 50 people. They are always online. So if you have any questions, just go there and you ask questions, and I'm sure you get great answers from the ownCloud experts there. Then we have a mailing list there, as you see there with this link. You can also ask questions there. And of course, if you have more questions regarding the enterprise edition, the licensing, you can always contact us with info@owncloud.com. Also, if you want to get a little bit more help, for example, if you want to develop an app or an extension, but you don't have the resources to do this on your own, please ask us, and we can help you, of course. And in general, all kinds of questions, write an email to this address. Okay. Then I give back to Matt now.
Great. Thanks, Frank. Let me just wrap this up, and then there's at least one question over here that I think is a good one we'll get to. So in summary, right, ownCloud, solving the Dropbox problem, giving you your ability to choose. It's secure, it's on-site, or wherever you choose to place it. Integrates with your existing infrastructure, an extensible file sync and share solution. And the point here is just to give you a brief taste of how easy it is to create an app, PHP, JavaScript, HTML, SQL knowledge, how easy it is to use that app to integrate with existing systems or to extend the ownCloud functionality. The bottom line is, don't just take our word for it. Take a look at ownCloud.com and grab the virtual appliance and give it a try. Frank gave you some good steps up above to where to look, including the app template, which is a good place to start if you're looking to use ownCloud as a platform for building an app. And that's it for the webinar, but let me answer one question from Sebastian here, and please feel free to add others. Is there any difference between Community Edition and Enterprise Edition, except maybe in the code quality or something like that? Frank, do you want to take a stab at that?
I can, sure. There are differences, right? Exactly, yeah. The thing is that the core ownCloud functionality, like syncing, sharing of files, versioning, encryption, media streaming, calendar, address book, and so on, those are all the same from a code standpoint. We have a few extensions in the Enterprise Edition for functionalities that are important for enterprise customers. So if you run, for example, ownCloud in installation that's perhaps a little bit bigger, or you really have high requirements on uptime, or you have to specific logging requirements, we have a few extensions that are very, very helpful for enterprises to give you a really, really good experience. So we have extensions. So for example, we support Oracle, MS SQL. We don't support it in the community version. Then we have our logging module where we get a little bit more logging to be compliant with some regulations to log usage, for example, that you might have. Then we have functionality to integrate it into your existing home directory structure. So if you have, for example, an organization where there's 1,000 people, they all have existing home directories, like a sys, Windows Server, or an NFS home directory or something like that. We have tools to integrate it into your ownCloud in a very, very easy, seamless way. So we have some optimizations that are very, very helpful for bigger enterprises. The core functionality, I mean, especially for home users, the Community Edition is totally fine. So if you have a home installation, or you just use it for your family, or you have to use it with a small installation for, let's say, 10 or even 50 or 100 users or something like that, you don't have any special requirements for support, or you don't need any customization, you don't need any white labeling, stuff like that. Use the community version, but I think for the enterprise version, we also have a very good offering. And I think, Matt, you have the complete overview in your head what the benefits of our subscriptions are.
Yeah, the truth is there's three parts. Frank mentioned one of them, which are the tools part of it. And that's one thing he didn't mention was some of the quality assurance that goes into ownCloud Enterprise Edition. You'll notice things come out in the Community Edition, and then often a couple months later they'll show up in the Enterprise Edition. And we spend a significant amount of time QAing that code and certifying it. All of those, some of that certification goes back to the community, of course. It's open source. But then on top of that, Frank also mentioned the other tools you get, which are the proprietary extensions that we offer. The other two things that support Frank mentioned, which is this idea of global support and the ability to call or email if there's a problem. And the last piece is influence, which is influence over the roadmap of the product and where we're going as a product. So that's the other one that's typically there. So those are the three things we tend to talk about when we talk about support. And also the last piece, which is useful to understand, is the AGPL versus commercial license, which Frank mentioned, that we do provide as part of our support, as part of ownCloud Enterprise, the commercial license, so you can do something proprietary and custom and keep it to yourself if so needed in a commercial situation with the Enterprise Edition. And there are various reasons to do that, to keep certain things behind your firewall and not well known, like, say, customized backend authentication or something like that. Hopefully we answered that question. There's another question that came in, which is ownCloud in a box on SUSE Studio ready for production? I love ownCloud in a box on SUSE Studio, by the way. Also love SUSE Studio just in general. I tend to use it to build appliances that make it really easy for us to test. And I'll be honest, the appliances that show up that we put on our website were all built with SUSE Studio. But the reason we build our own and don't use SUSE Studio in a box is it's a SQLite-based SUSE Studio. The SUSE Studio-based ownCloud in a box is a SQLite-based installation, and it's good for a POC. It's good for a few users. Many of you know SQLite being a lightweight database. I would not take that into production. And if you do put it in any sort of open scenario, please remember to change the passwords, because the passwords are, of course, standard. So change the login root passwords, change the SUSE, change the admin passwords on ownCloud. But even ours, back to the question, even our appliance that we provide on our website, really good for a POC, really good to poke around ownCloud, really good for a small installation. But once you get serious, you're going to want to start looking architecturally to split things like the database server out from the app server and things like that are just a little bit more complex. But for a small scenario, our own appliance, also built with SUSE Studio, uses MySQL and is a little bit more performant. Hopefully that answers that question. And given that it is 1 o'clock here, 1 hour into the webinar, we are out of time. If we have questions that haven't been addressed, please feel free to submit them. Otherwise, thanks for your time, everybody. Frank, thanks for the time. And we will end the webinar now.
Thanks.